Welcome back. So, February, my boyfriend and I decided to read a Russian book. And I first picked Pinin. I don't really know how to pronounce it. I first picked that one and I gave it a chance, but it really wasn't grabbing me. But I was okay with that because I decided to pick up The Master and Margarita, and I have been loving it. It's just amazing. Master and Margarita starts with two writers walking around a pond, and one of them's name is Berlioz, and Berlioz is the editor for a literacy journal in Moscow. And he's with a poet named Ivan, but he goes by the pseudonym of Homeless. And Berlioz had asked, I apologize if I pronounce any of these names wrong, but I'll do them to the best of my ability. Berlioz had wanted Ivan to write a poem about Jesus Christ. And so he did. And Berlioz was going over it with him, and he was telling him that the poem that he currently had now made it seem that Jesus Christ was a real person. So he had asked Ivan, rewrite it again and do it as if Jesus Christ was not a real person. He doesn't exist. And someone overheard Berlioz saying that, and he wanted to join in the conversation. And he was pretty much asking them, like, do you not believe in Jesus Christ? And Berlioz pretty much said no. He says, why? And Berlioz pretty much was saying that there needs to be proof in order for him to believe that Jesus Christ was a real person. And this stranger, this what they called a foreigner, looked like a foreigner, he was really pressing on the fact that Jesus Christ was a real person, and there doesn't need to be any proof for it. A stranger starts telling Berlioz and Ivan about a story about, Ponius? I can't pronounce these names. Ponius Pilati? That's not right. So the stranger starts telling Ivan and Berlioz about the story about Ponius and how a prisoner has been brought in because he was preaching. He had to send him to death. So the people that day that got who were being put on trial were two thieves, this prisoner, robber, who also killed a couple of soldiers. Because the next day was the Passover, one of them was going to be let off. And the ruler, the person above Ponius, decided that it was going to be the robber who gets to be let go. Ponius did not like that. He had felt that this robber was a bigger threat to society than the guy who was preaching. So at the end of the day, whenever he had to announce everybody's death sentence and get started with the crucifixion, he felt terribly ill, like physically felt sick to his stomach, that he had to let this robber, this murderer, this menace to society go back into society. So Ivan and Berlioz, they hear the story and they're still skeptical, and they still believe that there needs to be proof. And this foreigner, this stranger, says that the proof is that he was there. He was there whenever Ponius had sentenced them to death. He was there whenever he was trying to talk to the high priest who had said that the robber can be let go, and he saw everything. They still don't believe him. They don't trust him. They're asking him for his papers. They're asking him to show his passport, show any identification. But instead, this stranger decides to pretty much save their fortune, and he tells Berlioz that he is going to be beheaded by a woman, and he tells Ivan that he is going to be locked up in a clinic for schizophrenia. And both these, they're just like, that's not gonna happen, it's not gonna happen. So as they're leaving this pond, Berlioz slips on sunflower oil, falls on tracks, and he gets beheaded by a train and that is being driven by a woman. After that happened, Ivan completely believes that this stranger killed Berlioz. Ivan tries to confront this, at this point they're calling him the professor. So he tries to confront the professor, and at this point, this professor is pretending that he does not speak a lick of Russian, even though he's speaking it perfectly just then. And that's what made them really skeptical, and they think he's a spy. That's why they're really like pushing for his identification. Ivan is pretty much like yelling at him, telling him that he needs to show his identification, and somebody comes up, like a stranger comes up, and he's like, dude, you need to chill, like calm down, like he doesn't understand what you're saying. Whenever the professor is leaving, he is accompanied by another person who he hasn't seen before, and then a cat joins them. Ivan decides to follow them, loses sight of the first two, but he keeps his eye on the black cat because he's really interested in what this cat's gonna do. And so this cat tries to get on a train, and he tries to pay, like money in the paw, try to pay, and the driver of this bus says, like, yells like, no cats allowed. And this cat puts the money back in his pocket, or I think his pocket, but he pretty much puts his money away and gets off the bus. And as the bus is leaving, he jumps on. Ivan's just mind blown that nobody else saw that that just happened. He tries to look for the professor, and he just assumes that he's going to be in this certain apartment. So he goes to this apartment where he knocks on the door, and the little girl opens it, and he just goes in. He goes into the restroom because he is for certain that this person who he believes is the devil is in the restroom. So he opens the restroom door, and there's a lady in there taking a shower, and he walks out of the apartment. He thinks to himself, of course he's not in there. He's at the Moscow River. He makes his way to the Moscow River, and he decides to take a swim. So when he takes a swim, he takes off his clothes, and he's next to a person, and he asks the person to watch his stuff. Ivan takes a dip, he swims, because the guy has to be in there. He swims, he comes back out, and not only is his clothes gone, but the person who was supposed to be watching this stuff is gone too, and all he has left are just boxers and a t-shirt, like a tore up t-shirt. He has no choice, he has to wear them, but he decides to take the back alleys to Gibodio. And Gibodio is a beautiful place where all the writers of Moscow live. Beautiful place, and there's a restaurant at the very bottom of this place. And Ivan's on his way over there because earlier Berlioz was supposed to go to a meeting at the Gibodio, and there's 11 writers waiting for him. They haven't heard that he has died at all. 12 writers are waiting on Berlioz to come, and they finally had enough. They decide not to wait for him anymore, so they decide to go drinking and dancing at the restaurant downstairs. So the news of Berlioz's death finally gets around, and a lot of people are shocked. But they're not as shocked as when they see Ivan coming in to the Gibodio, and he is wearing his underwear and a tore up t-shirt, and he just looks disheveled. They are more scared and terrified of him than they are like concerned and worried about him. They get mad at the doorman for letting him in, like saying, like, how can you let him in looking like this? Like, it's unacceptable. The doorman says like he is a member of the club, so he couldn't tell him no. So they fire the doorman, they call the cops, and they take Ivan away. They take Ivan to a clinic so that way he gets checked out by a doctor. And so when they're asking him what happened, like why are you in this situation, he tries to explain that Berlioz died and it's because of the devil. The devil killed him, and we need to go get him. We gotta go find him. He's out there in Moscow. We have to find the devil. And they say, you know what? He has schizophrenia. So now he's in the clinic labeled with schizophrenia. So Ivan is dead, but his roommate doesn't know it. His roommate thinks that he probably got arrested, but doesn't know for certain. And the roommate's name is Stiopa. His name's Stiopa. And he is waking up from his hangover that he has, and he wakes up and there is a stranger in his room. And the stranger tells him, my name is Woland, and I came because we talked about finishing talking details about the contract the arrangement, the deal that we made yesterday. And the roommate, Stiopa, does not remember anything. He can't remember anything about yesterday because he drank so much. I'm pretty sure Stiopa is the person that pretty much finds the talent for this theater and books them. So Woland said that Stiopa and him talked yesterday about Woland having a 7-night performance with a $10,000 advance. Stiopa calls Rimsky, which is a financial director at the theater, and Rimsky pretty much confirms, hey, yeah, you booked him, and I know everything that's going on. And Styopa is starting to lose his mind. Like, he doesn't remember anything. He can't believe that he booked somebody for 7 nights. Now, he sees another stranger in his apartment, and then he sees a black cat in his apartment. So these 3 strangers are in Styopa's apartment, and he is just flustered. While he's like in this confused state of mind, Wolin explains that while he's doing these performances, he needs a place to stay, and because him and his friends are there, that Styopa cannot stay there anymore. And then a 4th guy comes out, pretty much just bashing on Styopa, saying like, I don't really know how you became the director of a theater anyways. And the cat, who is holding a shot of vodka and I think a cigarette, and says yes, and you take advantage of people who pretty much don't know what they're doing. The cat tells him to scat, and Styopa blacks out, and when he wakes up, he's on a beach. And he asks the stranger, and the stranger is absolutely disgusted at the fact that this man is even talking to him. And Styopa asks, like, where is he? And this guy's like, you don't know where you're at? And Styopa's like, no. And he says, you're in Yalta, which turns out to be 900 miles away from where his apartment is and where he originally was just was. So Styopa is gone, and Ivan is still in the clinic. He finally meets with the main doctor. He is telling the doctor that he met a guy who knows Ponius, and that he needs to go out there. He needs to call the cops, and he needs to go hunt for him. And the doctor pretty much tells him like, yeah, you can go to the police, but as soon as you tell them what you're telling me, you're gonna end up right back here. So it's just best for you to just stay here. And if you honestly want to talk about it, you could write it down. He has a self-realization that his writing sucks and he's not gonna do it anymore. So Ivan is in the clinic. Styopa is 900 miles away. And now we're learning about landlord, and he's like in charge of all these apartments where all these people live on the certain road, on the certain street. Landlord's name is Nicanor. He hears about Berlioz's death, so he decides to go to Berlioz's apartment and steal any of his manuscripts, steal anything to try to sell it, and he's trying to claim property that isn't his. So when he gets to the apartment, there's already somebody there. And he's telling this guy, like, you're not supposed to be here. The guy says, actually, I am. We're going to be staying in this apartment. Everything's already settled. The landlord goes and he calls the Foreign Tourist Bureau. And they say, yes, everything's already done. The paperwork's done. You're going to have $3,500 for a week. So he goes back and he says, okay, yeah, I guess you are going to be staying in this apartment for a week. And it's like $3,500. And Koroviv says, no, you can ask Wolin for $5,000 because he'll pay it. So Koroviv writes down in the contract that Wolin has to pay $5,000. Ivan also asks Koroviv if he can have some passes for him and his missus to go to the show. Wolin agrees. So he gives him the passes, and then he also gives him a wad. The wad ends up in Nicanor, the landlord's, briefcase. So when he gets home from Berlioz's apartment, he wraps up this wad in a newspaper and hides it in his bathroom air vent. Whenever Nicanor is leaving Berlioz's apartment, Wolin tells Koroviv, I don't like that man. I don't want him coming back here ever again. Koroviv says okay. So what he does, he calls somebody and he says, hi, I'd like to report that Nicanor has foreign money and he's hiding it in his bathroom air vent. So later that day, whenever him and his wife are eating dinner, some citizens, some comrades show up and they say, hey, we need to look around. Can we look in the restroom? Nicanor is kind of fussy about it, but his wife is like proving innocent. She's like, I'm innocent. I have nothing to do with anything. We didn't do anything wrong. So they go into the restroom, they pull out the newspaper, and there's $400 in American money. And having foreign money is a big no-no, so he is arrested. Rimsky, who is the person that talked to Styopa about Wolin being foreman for the show, he's at the theater, and Styopa is supposed to be there, but he's not there. And he starts getting telegrams saying that Styopa has been arrested, and then Styopa is going to a clinic, and Rimsky tells administrator Veranuka to take the telegrams, take it to the police because something's not right. So as he's going, he gets a phone call and someone warns him, do not take the telegrams anywhere. Veneruka ignores the warning and he starts walking through the court to go to the authorities. And as he's walking through the court, he thinks to himself, I wonder if the public restrooms have been fixed. So he goes to the public restroom, and as he's there, two strangers plus a stranger and a Catman person come up to him and they say, didn't you get warned that you weren't supposed to take these telegrams anywhere? So they knock him out, they hit him, and they hit him twice, and then drag him to Steopa's apartment, where there is a naked redheaded lady who says, I'm gonna give you a kiss. And before she could kiss him, he knocks out. He doesn't come back from the authorities because he never went. He's knocked out at Steopa's apartment with this naked redheaded lady. Rimsky is at the theater, not alone, but he feels like he's pretty much by himself. He's like trying to understand, like, what's going on? Why is all this happening? This is some weird shit happening. And Wolin's supposed to perform that night. Before Wolin gets on stage, he's kind of talking with the master of ceremonies, which to me is kind of like the ringleader to circus. He's pretty much saying that he's a skeptic. He doesn't believe in magic and there's no real proof that it exists. Wolin is like, okay, you think magic isn't real, that's fine. And so Wolin and Koroviv and this cat are on the stage all together, and the first thing that they're talking about is how Moscow has changed and not for the better. Rimsky says, oh, he's praising Moscow. Wolin hears it and he says, did I praise anything? And Koriv's like, no. He's like, I did not praise anything. He's a lie. Wolin says, let's get started with some black magic because I feel like I'm losing the crowd. So he starts doing a card trick, and the pack of cards end up in somebody's pocket. Somebody yells out, oh, he works here. And then Wolin says, well, you must work here too because now the pack's in your pocket. And then he makes it rain money. Literally rain money coming from the ceiling. $10 bills are falling. Everybody's pardon. Two people got into a fight and somebody got arrested, and he makes it stop. Wolin starts talking about the ringer of ceremony, saying how he's a skeptic and how he thinks there needs to be proof. And he didn't really like that. So he asked the audience, well, what should we do with him? And somebody says, rip his head off. And Wolin, Koroviv, and Black Cat love the idea. They say, Behemoth? Behemoth? They tell Behemoth to rip his head off. So Behemoth is a black cat. He gets in position, he gets ready, and he jumps on Master of Ceremonies, which his name is Georges. So he jumps on Georges, rips his head off, and then Wolin's just holding his head up to the crowd. And people are shocked because they don't know if it's real. They don't know if it's part of the act. But there's gasp, and he has everybody's attention. Wolin asks this hanging head that he's holding, like, are you going to stop speaking that nonsense? And he says, yes, I'll stop speaking the nonsense. He asks the crowd, should we forgive him? And everybody's saying, yes, forgive him, give him back his head. So they put his head back on his body, because his body's just still moving around. They put the head back on the body and just shoo him off stage. He goes running off stage, frantic about his head, and Rimsky is the only person who goes after him. As quickly as Rimsky was like, wait, what just happened? He turns around, and now there's a whole boutique on the stage that they just snapped, and it was there. They start telling the ladies, let's go shopping. So one lady goes up there, she goes behind a door, she comes back out, and she looks completely different. Like, she looks so pretty. They tell her, like, oh, you can have it, it's your souvenir for coming out tonight. And so once the lady gets off stage and she's going to her seat, all these women just storm the stage, and they're grabbing stuff, and they go behind these doors, come back out, and they're a completely different person. They could just go get off the stage and take these things with them. And they tell them, okay, the store's closing in a minute. After that, not selling anything, and these ladies go crazy. They grab everything. They don't even check to see if they fit. They just grab it and go. After a minute, everything's gone. A guy yells from the balcony area that he needs to expose his techniques. So Koroviv exposes the man's affair to the entire audience, including his wife. And just like that, he says the show's over, and they both disappear. Koroviv and the black behemoth, the black cat. And just like that, all of these people are getting up and they're leaving, almost like they're hypnotized. So we go back to the clinic. Ivan is there, and this guy, the stranger, just gets into Ivan's balcony, and he asks to sit, and Ivan says yes. And they're talking about how they ended up there, and this stranger is loving Ivan's story. He's telling him how he met this guy who knew Ponius. He's really interested by that because he himself, the stranger, is writing a book on Ponius, or was writing a book about Ponius. Then Ivan gets a bit jealous of the stranger, but the stranger is jealous of Ivan because he had told Ivan, "You met the devil." And I wish I would have met him because I have so many questions for him. The stranger is telling him how he won a state bond, which is kind of like a lottery, and he used that money to get a nice place. He got a little cabin, and he wanted to write this novel. He met a girl, found love, and she was really encouraging him to continue writing and to hopefully publish it. So when he finally does, these people, Berlioz included, were saying that this man was trying to write like an apology letter for Jesus Christ, and they pretty much shamed him, and they wrote to everybody like, hey, this person, he wrote a book, don't read it. And he felt absolutely pitiful. And then the girlfriend, or his little girl, the girl that he absolutely fell in love with, she was married. Well, the stranger was also married. They were both married, but they were still like madly in love with each other. And so she was really upset for him, and she said like, look, I'm gonna be with you. I'm leaving my husband. I'm gonna go tell him right now that I'm leaving him. I'm gonna be with you. So I don't know why he gives her all this money, but he gives her all his money, and then she leaves, and he never sees her again. And so he decides from there, what's the point of living? So he goes to the clinic, and he's been there for 4 months. Back at the theater, the show is over. Rimsky's in his office, and he starts hearing commotion coming from outside, like in the streets. And when he looks out the window, he sees all these women in their underwear, because everything that they've grabbed from the boutique disappears. So now they're naked in their street, and he's calling for the police to come help and like settle things down. And he still doesn't know where Veruca is. Where is Veruca? So Veruca finally comes back, and he enters Rimsky's office, and he was shocked to see him because he did not look like himself. He was pale, and he just did not look okay. Rimsky has a little button in his office that he could press that probably asks for help, and Veruca realizes that he is doing that, and so he goes and he locks the door. Rimsky runs to the window, and he's like basically trying to jump out the window, but when he reaches the window, there is a naked red-haired lady outside the window, and she's trying to get in. And when she finally gets in, Rimsky's like cornered by Veruca and this naked red-haired lady, but the roosters start crowing, which means daylight's coming around. They both shriek, and they just fly out the window. Rimsky can't deal with this anymore. He goes out, he gets into a taxi, and he leaves town, and he's not seen again. He leaves everything behind, including his wife. Nicanor, who is the landlord, he is at this clinic now because he is confident and he is persistent that he does not have any currency, that he doesn't have any foreign money, and he doesn't know where it came from. He brings up Korolev, saying it was him, the devil did it. It says that they're staying in Berlioz's apartment. The people at the clinic explain to him like, no one's at Berlioz's apartment, no one's there. And he's persistent, like, the devil's there. Nicanor ends up having a bad dream. He ends up having a dream, a nightmare pretty much, where he's in the theater and this person is calling on different people to turn over their currency, like turn over the currency, because what use is it gonna do if you're hiding it? You can't spend it. Most of the people that he has called out, these people would say like, would try to lie and say that they didn't have any, and then the person would expose them. And some people would come out and they would be honest, and then they get questioned a little bit more, and their honesty would start to like shift, or like they'll try to like hide something, but the truth always comes out. So finally this performer asked Nicanor like to turn over his money, and he is saying in this dream and in real life, but he's saying that he doesn't have any money to turn over. He's having this really bad nightmare, and so whenever the nurse and the doctor finally are in there and he's waking up, he's saying like, I don't have any money. They inject him, he just falls back to sleep. So we go back to the story of the people in the beginning who got crucified, two thieves, and then the preacher. The guy named Matthew Levi curses God for having someone like Yeshua be crucified. After Yeshua, the preacher, gets crucified, Matthew goes and he takes down his body, and he also takes down the thieves. He brings down their bodies, and then he takes Yeshua's body. The next morning there is a line so that people could buy tickets to see the second performance of this seance. And there's nobody like an administration, there's nobody like high up that is there. The highest ranking person there is a bookkeeper named Vasily, and he has no idea about this seance. Like, he is confused, he has no idea what's happening, and he's getting questioned by policemen. He has to explain to them that even though he's the bookkeeper, and even though that contracts have to go through him, he's never seen any contracts. All the posters that were out that was promoting the show, they're all disappeared. No one has heard of Wolin. Wolin is a new name that no one's heard of before. The bookkeeper still has to do his job, so he takes the money that the theater made the night before and he's taking it to the commission. But when he gets to the commission, the secretary there is just crying, and she's upset, and she's freaked out, and so she pulls Vasily into the chairman's room, and it's just a suit, a talking suit. And so the secretary explains that a man and a black cat had walked in and talked with this chairman, and whenever they left him like that. He can't handle it, and he decides to go try to take the money somewhere else. He goes somewhere else, but the staff can't stop singing. And so trucks are coming, and they're taking everybody who can't stop singing to the clinic. So he tries to go to another place to turn in the money, and he goes and he looks before he even tries. He just looks around to see if anything is out of the ordinary or everything's fine. So he goes up to this person, and he knows the deal. Like, he's been doing this for 15 years. He turns in the money. He's writing on a piece of paper, and when he opens up the briefcase, turn over the money, it's all foreign money. Somebody says that's the trickster, and now Vasily is arrested. The same time that the bookkeeper is getting trying to deal with all this stuff, Berlioz's uncle is getting into town, into Moscow, because he got a telegram from Berlioz himself saying, "I have been run over. My funeral will be on Friday at 3 p.m. Come, Berlioz." So he's confused about where this telegram came from, and yes, he feels very, very bad for his wife's nephew dying, but what he's worried about is this open apartment in Moscow. Second chance like this does not come at all, so he has to take the opportunity to go down there and say, "Hey, this is my apartment." When he gets to the apartment complex, he's trying to talk to management, and management is not talking to him, but he gets let into the apartment by who knows who. Well, I guess the devil knows who. So he goes into the apartment, and he runs into Koroviv, and Koroviv is crying, and he's upset, and he's explaining how Berlioz dying was such a shame. His uncle Maximilian is thinking to himself "Oh, I wonder if this guy got the apartment." He asked Koroviv if he's the one that sent the telegram, and Koroviv says, "No, he did it," and he points to a black cat, and the black cat looks at him like, "Yeah, I did it. What of it?" And when Max does not respond, Behemoth, I'm still struggling. Behemoth demands to see his passport, and so Max gives this cat his passport, and he sees it, and he's looking at it, and he tells Max, "If I were to see you, I would not give you a passport." He revokes his invitation. He says, "You're not invited to the funeral anymore. You should leave and not come back. Don't even think about this apartment anymore." And so Max leaves the apartment. Well, hold on, I almost missed the part. Behemoth calls for Azazello to come, and Azazello is walking him out, and when they get to the staircase, he hits him with a rotisserie chicken, and Max goes flying down the stairs. And as he reaches the stairs, some guy is coming in and saying, "Hey, where's apartment number 50, which is Berlioz's apartment?" And he tells him where it's at, and he goes up there, and Max is kind of confused. He goes, "Well, who is that guy?" So he stays and he sits in the closet waiting to see what happens, and kind of nothing really happens. He ends up going back to where he came from and just leaves Moscow. The person that asked where the apartment is at is the barman of the Variety. So, and he has so many questions, So he goes to the apartment. He knocks on the door. This naked lady, the naked redheaded lady, answers the door. Barman explains like, hey, I need to talk to the performer. She asks Wolin. Wolin says send him in. So he goes and he talks to Wolin, and he says people have been using the money that they've got from your seance to eat at the buffet. But when I go look at the money, it's shredded paper. Wolin says maybe they thought the money was real, but he himself would never pay to eat at Andre's buffet because his food is spoiled. And the barman, Andre, tries to say that his food is second fresh. There's first fresh and then there's second fresh. And Wolin called this man out. He's like the Gordon Ramsay. He's like, there's no such thing as second fresh. It's either first fresh or it's spoiled. So Wolin wants to show him what fresh food is, so he has Azazello make him something fresh. He does, and he feeds it to the barman, Andre, and he eats it, and he's just so juicy he doesn't know what it is. But they offer him a drink, and he won't take the drink. Wolin says there's something fishy about somebody who won't drink. It's like they have something to hide. Like for Andre, which Wolin says, you have gold hidden underneath your floorboard. Wolin also tells him that he's gonna die of liver cancer in February, but don't go to the clinic. So after the barman leaves the apartment, he's worried that he's gonna die of liver cancer, and so he goes to a clinic and he's telling the doctor, like, you need to help me, you need to fix me, my liver. And they take all the tests and nothing's wrong with him, but he is persistent that he is gonna die of liver cancer. And the doctor asks him, do you drink? And he says no. But the money that the barman tried to show Wolin, there's like the shredded paper, when he tried to show it to him, it was money again. So he used that same money to pay the doctor, and when he paid the doctor, instead of the money that he thought it was just 3 wine bottle labels. So now that doctor that had just seen like somebody with actual money in their hand that is now wine labels, he's starting to lose his mind a little bit. So he calls the leech bureau, because back in the good old days, people would use leeches to try to help their blood pressure, and that's what he's trying to calm himself down. They bring leeches, and he has leeches on his temple and behind his ears, and he's just trying to forget about this crazy day. Guess what? I was so happy when I saw that there was book 2, because I was like, okay, I really want to share this book. I really want to start talking about it, but I thought that I was going to read the entire thing before I can share it. But I'm so glad there's a book 2, because that means I get to share part 1. I just finished sharing part 1 with y'all. So I'm really happy that I could share this book. I'm really happy that there's a part 2, and I'm really happy that I'm gonna keep reading it. I have no idea what to expect at all. This book is absolutely amazing. It keeps throwing curveballs at me, and every time I hear Koroviv, Wolin, or Behemoth the cat just pop up, I just get so excited. The person that I'm really worried, like not worried about, but really like curious about to hear why they are getting arrested is the bookkeeper, because to me he was doing everything right, but yet he's still getting fucked. So I'm kind of curious to see how that ends up. I'm curious to see what happens to Ivan, who was the first person that was put into the hospital, because not only does this book just share the stories of what's going on outside the hospital, it also shares stories of people that's happening to them in the hospital. I do have to say, I do leave out a lot of big things. I pretty much stripped the story down to its bones. Like, if it interests you, I really hope that you can actually get the book yourself, because like I said, I keep out a lot of things on purpose. I'm really excited that I could share this with y'all, and then I'll be able to share book 2. And yeah, I hope you have a great day.